purple sky of Kepler 4-4 to be stretched endlessly above the crystal towers of New Vega colony. Oh, the Zephyrians had built their home carefully over many years, each building designed to work with the planet's strange beauty. Their skin looked like glass in the sunlight, and they moved with gentle grace through their peaceful city. Commander Veltar stood in the communications center, his long fingers shaking as he tried to send another message into space. He had been sending the same plea for help for 3 days now, but no one had answered. The silence from the galaxy was more frightening than the approaching enemy ships. "Still nothing?" asked his assistant Kiravan, her voice barely above a whisper. Veltar shook his head. "The hegemony fleet will be here in 2 days. Every major civilization in the galaxy knows this, but none will help us." The Zephyrians were miners, not warriors. For 3 generations, they had dug precious minerals from their world and traded them peacefully with other species. They had never hurt anyone, never threatened anyone. They simply wanted to live in peace and take care of their families. But peace meant nothing to the hegemony. The hegemony was a group of aggressive alien species that took what they wanted by force. They had been moving through this part of the galaxy for months, demanding tribute from weaker civilizations. Those who refused were enslaved or killed. Those who paid were left alone until the hegemony wanted more. The Zephyrians had nothing to give except their lives and their freedom. "Send the message again," Veltar told his communications officer. "Someone has to hear us. Someone has to care." The message went out again, traveling through space at the speed of light. It carried the desperation of an entire species, the fear of parents who did not know if their children would see another sunrise far away. On the edge of human space, Captain Lee Jinho sat in his command chair aboard the EU's Indomitable. Ship was old, but well-maintained, one of Earth's deep space patrol vessels. Ginho had been in space for 15 years. He had never heard anything like the message that came through his communications system. Captain called Lieutenant Kim Sora from her station. "We're receiving a distress signal. It's not from any human colony." Jinho straightened in his chair. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was strange, musical in a way that human voices could never be. But the fear in it was universal. "This is a New Vega colony to any vessel in range. The hegemony fleet approaches our world. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no military. We cannot fight them. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have families, children. We do not want to die. Please. ... Someone. ... Anyone." The bridge fell silent. Ginho looked at his crew and saw his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They all knew about the hegemony. Everyone in this part of the galaxy knew about the hegemony. Sir Kim Sora said quietly, "Should I report this to Earth Command?" Jinho nodded. "Send it immediately. Priority 1. The message traveled through space again, this time toward Earth. It reached the Deep Space Monitoring Station in orbit around Jupiter, where it was immediately forwarded to military headquarters in Seoul. Within hours, it was on the desk of Admiral Park Dong-Min. Park was a veteran of humanity's expansion into space. He had fought pirates and helped establish colonies on distant worlds. He had seen the best and worst of what the galaxy had to offer. But he had never received a message like this one. He played the recording 3 times, each time hearing something new in the alien voice. The first time, he heard fear. The second time, he heard hope. The third time, he heard despair. "Sir?" A Major Song Haijin stood in the doorway. "The Earth Defense Council is waiting for your recommendation." Park looked at the star charts on his wall. Kepler 4-4b was far from human space, in a region where Earth had no interests and few allies. Helping the Zephyrians would mean risking human lives and ships for people they had never met. It would also mean doing what was right. "Tell the council I'll be there in 10 minutes, Park said. And Song. "Start pulling together a list of available ships and crews. Volunteers only, sir." "Are we really going to help them?" Park looked at the message transcript one more time.
Somewhere
In the galaxy, an entire species was about to be enslaved or destroyed. They had asked for help, and everyone had ignored them. Everyone except humanity. Yes, he said simply. We're going to help them, because that's what we do. The wheels of human military planning began to turn. In shipyards across the solar system, crews began preparing vessels for a journey that would take them farther from home than any human had ever traveled. They knew the odds. They knew the dangers. But they also knew that somewhere in the darkness, people were crying for help, and humanity had always answered such cries. Admiral Park Dongman walked into the Earth Defense Council, chamber in Seoul, his boots echoing on the polished floor. 12 counselors sat around a curved table, their faces showing doubt and concern. The holographic display in the center showed the vast distance too. Kepler 4 to be, and the size of the hegemony forces already moving toward the alien world. Admiral Park said, Counselor Yoon Mina, her voice cold. We've reviewed your request. You want to send our entire deep space fleet to help a species we know nothing about? Park stood straight, his hands behind his back. Yes, Counselor, that's exactly what I'm asking. The distance alone makes this impossible, argued Counselor Kim Tae-ho. 18 months each way through hostile space, we would be leaving Earth. Defenseless. Earth has its orbital defenses and the home fleet, Park replied. But these people have nothing. No weapons, no allies, no hope, except what we might give them. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors worried about the cost. Others feared making enemies of the hegemony. A few questioned whether humanity should interfere in alien affairs at all. Finally, the vote came. 7 counselors voted yes. 5 voted no. The mission was approved by the smallest possible margin. Within a week, 12 human ships gathered at the edge of the solar system. The fleet was not impressive by galactic standards. 3 destroyers, 4 cruisers, 2 supply ships, and 3 troop transports. 3,000 human volunteers, knowing they might never see home again. Captain Lee Jin-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the other ships take their positions. Each vessel carried families in its crew quarters, people who had chosen to come together rather than be separated for years. Children played in the corridors while their parents prepared for war. All ships report ready, Captain, said Lieutenant Kimso Dashra. Jin-ho nodded. Signal the fleet. Begin jump sequence. The ships disappeared into hyperspace, beginning their long journey to a world none of them had ever seen. The first months passed quietly. The fleet traveled through empty space, stopping only to refuel and check their equipment. But as they moved deeper into unknown territory, problems began to appear. The food recyclers on the transport ship Daegu broke down, forcing the crew to eat emergency rations. The main computer on the destroyer Busan developed glitches that caused navigation errors. Worst of all, the hyperspace engines on the cruiser Olsen began to fail, forcing the ship to travel at slower speeds. We're falling behind schedule, reported Chief Engineer Cho Min-ho during a fleet meeting held over video link. At this rate, we'll be 3 weeks late reaching Kepler 4 to be. Admiral Park studied the faces of his captains on the screen. Looked tired. Others looked worried. The Zephyrians don't know we're coming, Park said quietly. 3 weeks might not matter. But privately, he wondered if they would arrive to find only empty cities and slave ships. The journey grew harder as they traveled farther from human space. Strange signals appeared on their sensors. Unidentified ships were spotted in the distance. Too far away to identify, but close enough to worry about. The crew began to feel the weight of their isolation. On the transport ship Gwangju, Dr. Hanju treated cases of depression and anxiety among the civilian families. People missed home. They worried about their decision to come. Some wondered if they would ever see Earth again. Why are we doing this? Asked Engineer Park Soo-jin during one of her sessions. These aliens aren't our people. This isn't our war. Dr. Han looked out the porthole at the stars. Because someone asked for help, and we're the only ones who answered. Meanwhile, on Kepler 4 to be, the situation grew worse each day. The hegemony fleet had arrived on schedule, their massive ships blotting out the purple sky. The Zephyrians had tried to negotiate, offering to pay tribute in exchange for their freedom. The hegemony's answer was simple: total surrender or total destruction. Commander Veltar watched from his hiding place in the mountains as hegemony soldiers marched his people toward the mining complexes. The aliens were efficient and brutal, separating families and forcing the strongest Zephyrians to work in the deep mines, while the others were loaded onto transport ships. "Any word from the galaxy?" asked Kiravine, her crystal skin now cracked and dulled by fear and exhaustion. Veltar shook his head. "Nothing. We are alone." But far away in space, the human fleet continued its journey. They had traveled for 16 months now, their ships showing wear and damage from the long voyage. 2 crew members had died from accidents. A baby had been born on the transport ship's Sol. The first human born in this part of the galaxy, Captain Lee Jin-ho, stood in his ready room, looking at a photo of his wife and daughter back on Earth. He had missed his daughter's 10th birthday and would miss her 11th. He wondered if she still remembered his face. "Captain," came Kim Sora's voice over the intercom. "We're detecting long-range sensors. We should reach Kepler-4 for to be in 2 days." Jinho put the photo away and returned to his bridge. Through the view screen, he could see the other ships of the fleet, their lights twinkling in the darkness. They had come so far, risked so much, for people they had never met. Soon they would learn if their sacrifice meant anything at all. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, their ships appearing like tiny sparks against the vast darkness. "Captain Lee." Jinho immediately felt his heart sink as he looked at the tactical display. The purple world of Kepler-4 to be was surrounded by massive alien warships, their dark holes blocking out sections of the planet's surface. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Kim Sora from her station. "There are so many of them." Ginho counted the enemy vessels on his screen. 47 capital ships, each one larger than anything in the human fleet. Hundreds of smaller patrol craft moved between them like deadly insects. The hegemony had brought enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. "Take us behind the moon," Ginho ordered. "Psst. I want to see what we're dealing with. Before they spot us." The Indomitable and its sister ships slipped into the shadow of Kepler-4 for 2B's largest moon, their engines running on minimum power. From this hiding spot, they could observe the planet without being detected by the hegemony's sensors. What they saw made even the hardest. Veterans feel sick. The beautiful crystal cities of the Zephyrians were gone, replaced by ugly metal structures that looked like giant factories. Massive mining platforms had been driven deep into the planet's surface, tearing open wounds in the Earth that could be seen from space. Cargo ships moved constantly between the planet and the waiting fleet, carrying loads of precious minerals. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Choi Hoan-woo from the tactical station, "I'm detecting life signs in the deep mining complexes. Thousands of them, Zephyrians." Ginho asked. "Yes, sir." "But the readings are ... weak. They're working them to death." Admiral Park called an emergency meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room was filled with grim faces as each commander reported what their sensors had found. 300,000 hegemony troops on the planet, reported Captain Oh Jae-sung of the destroyer Resolute. Most of them are ground forces, but they have heavy weapons and air support. Their fleet has enough firepower to glass the entire planet, added Captain Seo Junho of the cruiser Incheon. "We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoonji stood up, her face pale. "Sirs, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The hegemony isn't just mining the planet. They're using it as a staging ground for attacks on other worlds. This is their main base in this sector." The room fell silent. The human fleet had come to rescue a few thousand Zephyrians, only to find themselves facing the entire hegemony war machine. "We should retreat," said Captain Kim Dong-soo of the transport ship Seoul. "Report back to Earth Command. Maybe they can send a bigger fleet." "That will take 3 years," Park replied quietly. "The Zephyrians don't have 3 years. They don't have 3 weeks." "Sir, with respect, this is suicide," argued Captain. "We can't fight the entire hegemony fleet. Our weapons are decades behind theirs. Our ships are smaller and weaker. will be destroyed before we even reach the planet. Park looked around the room at his officers. These were good people, brave people who had volunteered for a mission they knew was dangerous. But none of them had signed up to fight a hopeless battle against impossible odds. "You're right," Park said finally. "This is suicide. Any captain who wants to take their ship and crew home has my permission to do so. No one will think less of you." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Captain Seo Junho spoke up. "Sir, my crew and I didn't come this far to turn around now. Those people down there asked for help. We're the only ones who answered." "The Resolute stays too," added Captain. "Oh, surprising everyone. My daughter is about the same age as some of those Zephyrian children. I can't leave them." One by one, every captain in the room agreed to stay. It would face the hegemony, knowing they would probably die because it was the right thing to do. "Then we fight," Park said. "But not like the hegemony expects. We can't win a straight battle, so we won't fight one. We'll hit them where they're weak, when they're not ready. We'll make them pay for every inch of ground." The planning began immediately. The human fleet was small, but it was also fast and difficult to detect. It would use these advantages to strike at the hegemony's supply lines and communication centers. Captain Lee Jinho returned to his ship with a heavy heart. He looked at his crew, many of whom had families aboard the transport ships. They trusted him to keep them safe, but he knew he was about to lead them into a battle they could not win. "Attention all hands," he announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going to attack the hegemony fleet. I won't lie to you. This is the most dangerous mission any of us has ever faced. But somewhere down on that planet, innocent people are dying because no one else would help them. We're going to help them because that's what humans do." The first attack would come at dawn, when the hegemony's guard was lowest. 3 modified cargo ships, loaded with nuclear explosives, would ram themselves into the primary mining platform. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. The war for Kepler 4 for 2b was about to begin. The first human attack came just as the purple sun rose over Kepler 4 for 2b. 3 cargo ships, their holds packed with nuclear explosives, screamed down through the atmosphere toward the largest hegemony mining platform. The alien guards barely had time to sound an alarm. Before the ship struck, the explosion lit up the morning sky like a second sun. The mining platform, which had been tearing minerals from the planet's surface for months, collapsed into a burning crater. Thousands of tons of equipment worth more than some planets disappeared in seconds. Commander Thekvar of the hegemony forces stared at the destruction from his command ship in orbit. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that would destroy their own ships just to hurt the enemy. "Primitive savages," he muttered to his aide. "Send a patrol to find their base. These humans will learn what happens when they anger the hegemony." But the humans were already gone, their small fleet hidden in the asteroid belt beyond the outer planets. They had struck like lightning and vanished like smoke, leaving the hegemony to wonder where they would strike next. The answer came 6 hours later. Captain Seo Junho led a strike team of 20 Marines. Into the deepest mining complex on the planet, they moved through the tunnels like ghosts, using mining equipment and maintenance shafts to avoid the hegemony guards. When they reached the slave quarters, they found hundreds of Zephyrians barely alive. The crystalline beings had been worked almost to death, their glass-like skin cracked and dulled by months of forced labor. Many could barely stand, but their eyes still held a spark of hope when they saw the human soldiers. "Who are you?" whispered Commander Veltar, his voice weak from exhaustion. "We're from Earth," Junho replied, checking his rifle. "We heard your message. We came to help." "Earth." Veltar looked confused. "But Earth is so far away. Why would you come for us?" Junho handed him a plasma rifle taken from a dead hegemony guard. "Because someone asked for help? That's what we do." The humans began training the Zephyrians to fight. It was not easy. The crystal beings had been peaceful for generations and had never held weapons. But desperation made them quick learners. And soon they were helping the humans sabotage mining equipment and attack guard posts. The hegemony's response was swift and brutal. They sent their elite troops into the tunnels to hunt down the rebels. But the humans had learned to fight in places like this during their long history of war on Earth. They used every dirty trick. Their species had developed over thousands of years of conflict. They poisoned the water supplies that fed the hegemony bases. They rigged explosives and equipment that would detonate when the aliens tried to use it. They attacked at night, when the hegemony's vision was poor, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Most importantly, they taught the Zephyrians that their peaceful nature was not a weakness, it was a strength that could be turned into a weapon. Your people know these tunnels better than anyone, Junho explained to Veltar during a brief rest between attacks. You know where the air flows, where the water comes from, where the support beams are weakest. Use that knowledge. The Zephyrians began to understand. They started causing caverns that trapped hegemony patrols. They redirected toxic mining gases into alien barracks. They used their knowledge of the planet's geology to predict where the humans should strike for maximum damage, but the humans paid a terrible price for their success. Every attack cost them soldiers they could not replace. Captain Oh Jae-soon died when his ship was shot down during a supply run. Lieutenant Kim Sora was killed by a sniper while trying to rescue wounded Zephyrians. One by one, the humans gave their lives to keep the rebellion alive. Commander the Sivar watched the casualty reports with growing anger and fear. His forces were losing hundreds of soldiers every day to an enemy that numbered in the thousands, not millions. But every time he killed one human, two more seemed to take their place. These humans don't fight like civilized beings, he reported to his superiors. They fight like demons. They use weapons we've never seen, tactics that make no sense. They will sacrifice themselves just to kill one of our soldiers. The hegemony had never faced an enemy like humanity. Most species they conquered would surrender when the odds became impossible. They would negotiate, try to find a way to survive with honor. But the humans seemed to have no concept of honorable defeat. They fought when they were outnumbered. They fought when they were surrounded. They fought when they were dying. And somehow, impossibly, they kept winning. The rebellion spread beyond the mining complexes. Zephyrian cities that had been quiet under hegemony rules suddenly erupted in violence. Alien supply convoys were attacked on roads that had been safe for months. Communication towers were destroyed faster than they could be rebuilt. Admiral Park, coordinating the resistance from his hidden command ship, watched the reports with grim satisfaction. The humans were dying, but they were taking the enemy with them. More importantly, they were showing the galaxy that the hegemony could be fought and hurt. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're receiving messages from other worlds. Species that were afraid to fight the hegemony are starting to rebel. They're calling it the human example. Park nodded. This was what he had hoped for. Humanity's sacrifice was becoming a symbol that other species could rally behind. The war, for Kepler-4 for to be, was becoming something much larger. A war for the freedom of the entire galaxy. But first, they had to win the battle at hand. The final battle began when Admiral Park realized his fleet was down to fewer than 800 humans. For 6 months, they had fought the hegemony across Kepler-4 for to be, turning the planet into a graveyard for alien soldiers. But now, the humans were running out of ammunition, ships, and most importantly, people. Sir, we can't hold out much longer, reported Captain Lee Jin-ho from the bridge of the badly damaged Indomitable. The ship had taken so much damage that half its weapons were offline and the hull was held together with emergency patches. Park looked at the tactical display showing the hegemony's main command center. It was a massive fortress built into the planet's largest mountain, protected by shields and defended by thousands of troops. Taking it would be suicide, but it was also the only way to free the remaining Zephyrian prisoners. Signal all ships, Park ordered. We're going to attack the command center. Sir, that's impossible, protested Captain Su Jin-ho. We don't have enough firepower to break through their defenses. Maybe not, Park replied. But we're going to try anyway. Unknown to the humans, their final battle was being broadcast across the galaxy. The Zephyrians had hidden communication devices throughout the planet, and they were streaming everything to the galactic network. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds watched as the tiny human fleet prepared to attack the massive hegemony fortress. On the planet Zarian, the reptilian saurians watched the broadcast in their council chambers. For years, they had paid tribute to the hegemony rather than fight. Their leader, Chancellor Vextar, stood before the giant screen showing the human attack. "Look at them," he said to his counselors. "A handful of primitives from a world we've never heard of. They're about to die for people they barely know." On the water world of Aquatica, the dolphin-like cetaceans gathered in their underwater cities to watch. They had always believed that violence was wrong, that peaceful surrender was better than war. But as they watched the humans charge toward certain death, something stirred in their ancient hearts. The final assault began at dawn. The remaining human ships came screaming down through the atmosphere, their weapons blazing as they targeted the fortress's shields. The hegemony responded with everything they had, filling the sky with deadly energy beams and missiles. Captain Lee Jinho's ship was the first to break through the outer defenses. The Indomitable crashed into the fortress's main landing bay, her hull split open like a broken egg. Jinho, badly wounded and bleeding, stumbled out of the wreckage. With his surviving crew, "This is Captain Lee Jinho of Earth," he said into his communicator, not knowing that his words were being heard across the galaxy. "We came because someone asked for help. We stayed because it was right. Remember us." The humans fought their way through the fortress corridors, room by room, floor by floor. Their final bullets, their bare hands when necessary. Each step forward cost them dearly, but they kept moving toward the command center, where the hegemony leaders waited behind them. The liberated Zephyrians joined the fight. Commander Veltar, his crystal skin now scarred, but his spirit unbroken, led his people in their first real battle. They had learned well from their human teachers. Veltar shouted as he charged a group of hegemony. "Soldiers, for those who died for us." The battle raged for hours. The fortress shook with explosions as the humans and Zephyrians fought their way to the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Finally, Admiral Park and a handful of survivors reached the command center. Commander Vekfar was waiting for them, his alien features twisted with rage and fear. "You fools," he snarled. "You've doomed yourselves for nothing. The hegemony will send more fleets, more armies." Park raised his rifle, his hand steady, despite his wounds. "Maybe. But the galaxy has seen what happens when someone fights back. They won't be afraid of you anymore." The explosion that destroyed the command center could be seen from orbit. The hegemony's control over the planet died with their leaders, and the surviving alien troops began to retreat to their ships. But the real victory was happening across the galaxy. On world after world, species that had lived in fear of the hegemony began to rise up. The Saurians declared independence and began building warships. The cetaceans formed their first military fleet in 1,000 years. Dozens of other species joined together in a new alliance. The human sacrifice had lit a fire that spread across the stars. 6 months later, Commander Veltar stood before a monument made of black stone. Carved into its surface were the names of every human who had died on Kepler 4-4 to be. At the top, in letters that could be seen from far away, were simple words in a dozen languages. "They heard our cry in the darkness. They came. They gave everything. Data." Monument stood in the center of New Vega City, rebuilt and more beautiful than ever. Children played in its shadow, both Zephyrian and human, born to the families of those who had survived the war. But the monument's real purpose was not to remember the dead. It was to remind the living that sometimes the smallest voice can roar loudest of all, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. The galaxy would never be the same. The hegemony still existed, but it was no longer unstoppable. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, other species facing impossible odds remembered the humans who had come when no one else would answer. They remembered, and they found the courage to fight.